Okay. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. I'm feeling a bit under the weather today, so I have a heavy husky voice. So accept my apologies for that. Okay. So you are Muhammad Schees, right?
Yes.
A student of Diploma in AI Ops, Artificial Intelligence Operations at RQF Level 6. Today is your final exam per se for part two, which is for EduQual. You will have 15 to 20 minutes to present your, topic, what it is, etc., etc. And then we will jump into Q&A session as per your topic and as per your presentation. The question can come from anywhere. It is going to be collectively coming from all the things that you have learned within your diploma, right? So that's what it is going to be. Questions are going to be based on job-based. Questions are going to be based on what do you do in reality, so on and so forth. And this part two, the MCQ part is 50% of the diploma in terms of marking. And the interview and presentation, the presentation and interview P&I is basically, again, 50%. The composite is, the breakdown is that there is 25% marks coming from 25 weightage is coming from the presentation, and 25 marks are coming from basically your interview, how the interview went through, right? Okay, so Bismillah, you can proceed, and I will start the timer again, 20 minutes, 15 to 20 minutes. You can wrap it up, and then we can jump into
I can
the
share my
Q&A.
screen.
Yes, you can. Bismillah.
Can you see?
I can. Okay,
Okay. Can I start?
please proceed.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Muhammad Schees. My presentation is about scalable, secure, multi-tenant cloud architecture with AI-based resource management. I will go through DevOps, SysOps, AI, cybersecurity, GRC, and cloud security, and will look upon how all of these can be implemented to achieve a scalable and secure multi-tenant cloud architecture. DevOps. DevOps is used for automating the deployment process of multi-tenants. We will use infrastructure as code. Infrastructure as code means we will use infrastructure templates because if we have to manually make an infrastructure, so it will take a lot of time. So instead of that, we will use infrastructure templates. In that, AWS CloudFormation and Azure Resource Manager will help us creating them. This will allow repeatable deployments with less time effort. And we will deploy it across Azure and also AWS. Then we can also use CI/CD pipelines in which we will implement continuous integration using tools like Jenkins or GitLab continuous integration. These pipelines will automate, build, test, and deployment of the infrastructure, so it can make easy for us to deploy it. Then we can also use dynamic scaling. Dynamic scaling means we will see the tenant demand. As per the tenant demand, we will automatically scale the groups, and load balancers means, for example, if some tenants need resources and some do not, so we'll only provide to the tenants that needs that resources. So this is how dynamic scaling works. Then in SysOps, we will use AI in SysOps for resource management. In SysOps, first there is AWS Trusted Advisor. So AWS Trusted Advisor and Azure AI for IT operations, which was formerly known as Azure Advisor, are both almost for same purposes. They advise and recommends what type of resource management we need in our multi-tenant system. So we will implement AWS Trusted Advisor to continuously analyze our AWS environment. Both of these tools uses machine learning to provide real-time recommendations. In AWS Trusted Advisor, it recommends for optimizing the security, performance, and cost efficiency, whereas in Azure AI, it recommends how to optimize and manage the size of the virtual machines. This means as per the we need resources, as per the tenant demand, we can see over the virtual machines, and we can analyze the performance of our multi-tenant architecture, and this will reduce the cost of it. We can also build our own custom AI models, which means it will be trained on our data. We can use the tools like AWS SageMaker or Azure Machine Learning uh, to build a model, and this model can predict resources needs based on historical usage pattern or historical data. We can also enable proactive scaling, which means as per the requirements are done in real time, we will scale or allocate the resources for each tenant. So this level of customization ensures that multi-tenant environment is optimized for the specific use of a specific tenant. Then we will use AI for predictive analytics. Predictive analytics is an important part which reduces time in predicting the resource allocation. First, we will correct the data. We will correct the data using AWS CloudWatch or Azure Monitor. We will clean the data and normalize the data, because when we normalize, then it is a consistent. Then we will create a unified data set out of it, so that it can be easy for us to do data analysis across both platforms. Then we will develop the model. We will use AWS SageMaker and Azure Machine Learning to develop and train the predictive models. We will implement advanced techniques like time series forecasting. Time series forecasting is like predicting the future based upon historical data. And we will also use anomaly detection. Anomaly detection is specifically used in securing an architecture, because it can see what type of unusual activities being going on. But anomaly detection can also be used for predicting the data, which can uh, uh, because in time series forecasting, historical data may be same, but because of certain activities, the prediction might change. Then real-time inference. We will deploy the models that we trained on SageMaker and Azure Machine Learning to the production environments. Because of that, we will get real-time predictions on the real-time incoming data, and we will use this prediction to drive automated scaling decision, and we will use it for resource allocations across our whole multi-tenant setup. Continuous learning. So the benefit of AI, using AI for predictive analytics, is that it continuously learn. When it receives the data, it will learn how new data can perform, and as per that, it can improve the models based on actual outcomes which are incoming in real time. This will also ensure that predictive accuracy increases over time. So this means then there will be better resource optimization in future. Cybersecurity. Cybersecurity is used for securing the data and also managing the tenant access control and data isolation. So first we will see identity management. We will implement AWS IAM or Azure Active Directory to create identity access management system. Identity access management system is like for example, there is a Al Nafi portal. In Al Nafi portal, when I log in, so it knows that what is my identity, and it will allow only access to me, not to anyone else. So this is how identity access management works, and it will allow only specific tenant to go through it. Then we can also use role-based access control, which is almost the same like it, but in this there is a role based access control, and other one is attribute based access control. But in this we need identity, so we will use role based access control to ensure that the tenants can only access their designated resources and do not go in anyone other's resources. Then we will use network isolation. In network isolation, we will leverage the virtual private clouds in AWS or virtual networks in Azure. This means that we will isolate the tenants from the outside environment. Like for example, there is a building that is a cloud, and inside there are many apartments. So that apartments are networks of every tenant. So every tenant will be isolated according to their needs. Then data encryption. We will use AWS Key Management Service and Azure Key Vault to manage encryption keys. This means that we will encrypt the data either it is at rest or it is in transit, where we will encrypt it so that no one other than the tenant can access to it. We will also use monitoring and auditing. So we will set up a comprehensive logging and monitoring system using AWS CloudTrail and Azure Monitor. This is like implementing a camera inside a building which oversees different activities and alerts the management if something unusual happens. So this is how monitoring and auditing works in a multi-tenant setup. Then there is GRC, governance, risk, and compliance in multi-tenant environments. GRC is important in every organization because governance are the set of rules provided by an upper body in an organization. Like for example, a CEO will tell how a company will run, and in governance, they will have to see that if everyone is following the rules or not. In risk management, it is like seeing or spotting problems and curing it so that it can minimize the risk. And then in compliance means that the organization is running according to the industry standard. Like there are three types of compliance, that is HIPAA, PCI DSS, and GDPR. HIPAA means Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, and PCI DSS means uh, Payment Card Industry Data Security Standard, and GDPR means General Data Regulation Protection Regulation. So HIPAA is used for health information, and PCI DSS is used where payments are implemented and where payments are necessary, whereas GDPR can be used everywhere. So GRC is essential for multi-tenant cloud environments. We can use tools like AWS config rules and Azure policy for policy management, which is governance, AWS config, and Azure Security Center for compliance monitoring, which is compliance, AWS CloudTrail, and Azure Monitor for audit logging, or we can use it for risk management. Then we can use AWS resource groups and Azure Resource Manager tags for resource tagging. Organization can enhance security, improve compliance, optimize resource management, and can also reduce cost, increasing the agility and gain better visibility into their cloud operations and multi-tenant cloud architecture. Then first I discussed about cyber security. Then it comes cloud security. In cyber security, it is like how to protect an apartment in a building, but cloud security is how to protect whole building. So in this, we will use key management services like AWS Key Management and Azure Key Vault. We will use centralized key management solutions because in this we can apply encryption whether symmetric or asymmetric. These services provide secure storage and management of cryptographic keys, ensuring that each tenant's data is encrypted with unique keys. Either it can be one key, which is symmetric encryption, or a public key or private key, which is asymmetric encryption. Then there is encryption at rest. As suggested by name, encryption at rest means storing, encrypting data which is already stored, which is in its place. So we will, how can we secure it? So we will use data storage services like Amazon S3, EBS volumes, or Azure Blob Storage because it is storage. So we will secure it inside the storage when it is at rest. We can also use customer managed keys to give tenants full control over their encryption keys. Then there is encryption in transit. So it is also suggested by name. Encryption in transit means we will we will use encryption to secure the data that is being sent or that we are sending towards the receiver. We can use the TLS and SSL encryption, transport layer security, and secure socket layer encryption. In this, TLS is more efficient, but we can use both. So we can use services like AWS Certificate Manager, Azure App Service certificates, and we can also implement VPN gateways for secure cross-cloud communication. We can also implement application level encryption. Application level encryption is like another layer of encryption on already encrypted data. So we will develop application level encryption mechanisms using libraries like AWS Encryption SDK and Azure Information Protection SDK. So this adds an extra layer, as I already said, of security by encrypting the sensitive data before it leaves the application and reaches the receiver. Thank you.
Okay. I've reviewed your presentation prior to coming over here, and in the morning I did that as well. And yes, last night, and then today, before joining it, I reviewed that as well again quickly because I wanted to see other things in your folder as well. The presentation is good. It covers most of the areas. However, more specific examples needs to be added for multi-tenant isolation strategies. What could it be? Some of the cost optimization strategies for multi-cloud environment, disaster recovery and business continuity considerations. But essentially, the topic covers all the coverage that you have given. It covers all the key areas. So that's good. Okay. All right. So we'll talk about that later on. Let's jump on to the questions. Sorry, I'm still a lot under the weather. If you are not able to understand my question, you can ask me again and I will be able to answer back, okay? So the questions are going to be, they're going to start from easy to the difficulty level is going to rise as we move forward, right? Okay. Okay. So the first initial questions are going to be easier ones. So explain the role of AWS Cloud Formation and Azure Resource Manager and automating multi-tenant cloud deployments. What is the role of these two solutions in the multi-cloud environment?
AWS CloudFormation and Azure Resource Manager help us to make templates of infrastructure. So how can this automate the process? This can automate that. For example, if we manually create infrastructure, it will take a lot of time. But instead, we will create infrastructure templates and we can change according to needs.
Good. It's good. Okay. So infrastructure as a code, right? Why is it important in a cloud management? Why do we need IAC?
Infrastructure as a code is extremely important because, as I said, if we need automation, so we will need infrastructure as code to automatically deploy according to the needs and specifications for required by the tenants. We can change the infrastructure. This is like, for example, an email template. If we have to send an email to many people but change something, so we can make one template and change every time we need to change. So that is in automation, it is the most important.
Well, it says IAC is a practice, right? Where infrastructure is provisioned and managed using code. What does it bring? What does it bring? It brings automation. Yes, you mentioned that.
Yes.
What else does it bring on the table?
It reduces time and it reduces cost for manually building the infrastructure.
Okay. Yep. So it brings consistency, automation, version control.
It brings repeated deployments and
Yes.
continuous
Good word.
deployments.
That's a good word. Calm down, Muhammad. Calm down. It's very stiff. You're very stiff right now. When you're going for an interview, this is your interview preparation, right? So when you're going for an interview, you have to be calm and composed. This is very important for you, okay? This is good. Good answer. IAC also helps manage resources across multiple environments with less risk of configuration drift. You know what configuration drift means?
No, I don't.
What does drift means? Drifting away.
Drifting, yes.
What does it means?
Going away.
Going away, right? So configuration drift, what happens is just like if you do not have a template, then every time you create something from new, you can introduce some mistakes in there, right?
Yes.
And that is the configuration drift, right? So if you have templates preset,
Yes.
configured, and checked and verified and compliant, that is something that organizations strive for. Okay, define continuous integration and continuous deployment.
Continuous integration and continuous deployment as suggested by its name, that when we have an infrastructure, how can we, and when we have a multi-tenant cloud architecture, how can we continuously integrate it into the environment and continuously deploy it? And we can deploy it using Jenkins or GitLab continuous integration. These are the two tools which we can use. So this automates the building, testing, and deployment of the process. And this is what for continuous integration and continuous deployment is used for.
The CI is focuses on integrating code into a shared repository, while the CD, continuous deployment,
Deployment,
it's the release of changes to end users, enabling faster updates, right?
like new features, when new features come, so how fast can it, the users can get access to it?
Yes, yes. Okay, good. What is the role of AWS Key Management Service in data security context?
AWS Key Management Service or Azure Key Vault, they both have the same work, which is encryption. They encrypt and secure the data either through symmetric or asymmetric encryption. They uses the public key or private key in asymmetric and one key in symmetric encryption. So this is basically for securing the data. Even if someone access the data, but they cannot open it until they decipher it using the public key or private key.
Excellent. When did you register with us?
1 June.
Last year, June?
No, this year.
This year, June? No, no, not for the exam, but for the course and everything.
In the courses.
So you started your diploma in artificial intelligence operations when?
In 1st June 2024. On 1st June 2024.
Prior to that, what were you studying?
I studied computer science in O levels and also my A level. And I also did a lot of courses in AI and cybersecurity. So DevOps and SysOps were new things for me, but AI and cybersecurity were most of which I already knew. Machine learning, Hugging Face, reinforcement learning, supervised learning, all of these things I already knew.
So you did O levels and A levels as well?
Yes.
What were your subjects in O level?
O level 8 subjects which are common: science, computer, Pak study, Islamiyat, Urdu, English, etc.
Okay, excellent. And what were your grades?
I scored a 5A and 1 A star in maths and 3 Bs.
Good. And in A level, what did you do in A levels?
In A level, I did not study, so I did not get good grades, but I learned the concepts, but I did not enjoy the practicing. Like, for example, practicing the past papers of math, or practicing coding in computer, or practicing physics past paper. So I only learned concepts, so that's why I did not get good grades.
Okay, that's good. All right. So all right. So let's jump into the interview further. Explain to me, excuse me. So how do auto-scaling groups improve cost efficiency in cloud operations?
So it is dynamic scaling. Auto scaling improves the efficiency of the multi-tenant cloud architecture. For example, there are tenants in a house, and some tenants want to eat outside, and some tenants want to eat inside the hotel. So the hotel management will only provide the food for the tenants which are inside the hotel. Means the resources needed by the tenants are only provided, and this reduces the cost because it is not provided to everyone. It is only provided to the one that needs these resources.
So essentially, auto-scaling groups automatically adjust the number of instances in response
Yes.
to demand, scaling up, scaling down during
Yes.
high traffic, stuff like that, and scaling down with demand increases, right? Okay. Describe the process of implementing RBAC, role-based access control, using AWS IAM. How do you do that?
AWS IAM is identity access management. It manages the identity of the tenants, and role-based access control is used. Like, for example, if like in Al Nafi portal, a person has bought a level 3 diploma. So the portal knows his role and will only provide the level 3 diploma and will not provide the other diplomas to him or her. Means it identifies the person and then identifies the role.
So
And
explain to me in the context of AWS IAM, right? So what do you do? What is the process of implementing RBAC using AWS IM? What do you do?
We will use identity access management. We will first store the identity of the tenant, and then we
The
will
first
store
thing we have
their.
to do is we have to define a policy, right?
Yes.
The policy needs to be defined, and then what happens after defining the policy? What do we do in the policy?
In the policy, we will define that what person, according to what role, will get what type of resources.
Yes, specific roles are defined, user groups are then made,
Yes.
and then assign these roles, ensuring that only have access to resources necessary for their work, improving
Yes.
security, reliability, right? Okay. Okay. Uh, how does Azure AI for IT operations assist in optimizing resource allocation in cloud environments?
So Azure AI for IT operations, which was formerly known as Azure Advisor, it works on real-time data, and it optimizes and manages the size of the virtual machines. So in virtual machines, it can optimize the size according to the tenant demand. If tenant requires a lot storage, then it will increase the size, and if it requires less storage, then it will decrease the size.
Explain how VPC contribute to the network isolation in a multi-tenant architecture. What
So
do you think of the
virtual private cloud in network isolation works like as I already told that, for example, there is a building, it is a whole cloud, but in there are every apartment for each tenant. So that apartment is like a network, and the tenant is isolated from all other tenants in the cloud, but it has his own network. So network can be isolated through VPCs, virtual private clouds, or VNets in Azure.
Interesting. Excuse me. What is the significance of using customer managed keys for encryption?
Customer managed keys in encryption enables the tenant to access the keys or create their own keys for their specific data. Like, for example, the duty of a multi-tenant cloud architecture is to secure the whole environment, but inside that, the specific data of the tenant that should be saved or secured by the tenant. Like, for example, if there is a house, and if we lock it, so the house is responsible by the property manager. But in room, if there are our things which we have kept in drawers or somewhere in cupboards, that is our responsibility to secure it. So that is how it works in tenant and encryption.
Okay. Discuss the role of CloudTrail in auditing multi-tenant cloud environments.
AWS CloudTrail or Azure Monitor, they both sees over the data. Like if there is an unusual activity, it sends an alert to the management of the cloud or multi-tenant architecture, and tries to cure it. The manager tries to cure it because it sends an alert at real time.
Okay. So how does CloudTrail really works? Like, what's the mechanism of the CloudTrail?
It works like it is implemented on the cloud, and it oversees the users that if a tenant is using the resources which are according to their limits, or if he is using across their limits or using more. So it oversees the tenants and oversees their activities, what type of activities they are doing, and if
So
they are doing
essentially, CloudTrail works through API, right? So
yes, API.
records API calls, enabling visibility into actions taken with the cloud environment, all of those things. Okay. How can predictive analytics enhances the resource allocation in a multi-cloud environment?
Predictive analytics. In predictive analytics, we use AI for resource allocation. So how can AI be used? We can
I mean,
create
what
our
does it
own,
look for? What does it look for?
like uh,
Like predictive analytics is based on what?
based upon data. The
Data.
data
What
is
kind of data? What kind of data?
the incoming or outgoing traffic,
Historical data, right? It
which
uses historical data to
yes,
forecast.
historical data.
Yes. Okay, continue.
So it uses historical data to predict the future outcomes from that specific data. And in this, we use time series forecasting, which is predicting, and we use anomaly detection. In anomaly detection, it oversees the unusual traffic or unusual activities going on, and it alerts the management. Or we can also use this in predicting the future because it can have an outcome over the data.
Okay. Explain the continuous learning process in AI-based resource management for cloud environments. How does
Continuous
that?
in AI-based resource management, continuous learning works like there is ChatGPT. ChatGPT and Bard, when they were introduced new in the market in 2022, so they were not yet efficient enough, but as per they were used and they recorded the data, so they became efficient. So AI in reinforcement learning, they uses the data through to learn again and again, and this will increase the efficiency in future of the AI using predictive analytics and resource-based management.
So let me ask you something. How many hours do you study in a given day?
It depends. When I was listening the videos, I used to study 8 till 10 hours. But I mean, I listened 8 till 10 hours, and then when I did MCQs, so I did almost 200 to 300 MCQs I did per day, and whatever time it took.
Do you practice as well? Do you
No, I
practice?
don't practice. I just focus on the EduQual exam part 2, and I thought that when I pass, then I will see practice whether I have to do or not.
Start implementing the practice part. This is very important for you. You know, your knowledge is very sound. You can explain yourself in a slightly crude manner, right? The business lingo is missing, but still you can explain the concept and you can do all of those things. So now it is high time that you put effort in Al Razak. This is very important for you, okay? Because I see that there's a great potential for you. Okay, so how can AWS Trusted Advisor help optimize performance and security in a multi-tenant setup? You know,
So
what's the goal of the Trusted Advisor?
AWS Trusted Advisor uses machine learning. It is a tool that uses machine learning for real-time recommendations. It recommends the performance and cost, whether multi-tenant cloud architecture, what type of recommendation it needs in terms of cost and performance management. So it recommends what you need to do in that environment specifically according to the real-time data.
So prior to you giving this topic, how did you prepare for this topic? Can you explain that to me?
How did I prepare?
Yeah, I mean, did you went to AWS website and Azure
No,
website?
no, no. I like as you said that when you get topic, so you can use the AI so that it can explain to you. So I did. I transcribed your interviews which you already took, and I gave my presentation which I prepared to the AI, the Scholar GPT. It is used for research, and I told based upon your questions like how you ask, list down 100 questions and answers for me which I can learn. And which are related to my topic. So through that, I prepared for it.
Excellent. Excellent. You're a very honest man. I like you about that. But here's the thing: you have mastered the process of augmenting yourself with AI. If you do the same thing in terms of learning how to enable yourself with the skills, you can pass any interview. I mean, that's the key goal, right? Okay. How old are you?
It's not been a day since I turned 20. Yesterday I turned 20.
Okay, so yesterday was your birthday.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to jump on some of the tougher questions. So describe a scenario where network security groups and firewall rules are used to control inter-tenant communication. How do you do that?
Oh, so No, I will explain through the example in like for example, the building is a cloud and the networks are the apartments. So if one tenant has to go to another tenant, it will go through a network. That is, he will go through the apartment. So on the gate of the apartment, a there will be a set of rules that are being implemented. Like for example, there will be a camera which will analyze what who is that tenant, or there will be a fingerprint who will analyze who is that tenant. So firewalls are set of rules which look upon the incoming and outgoing traffic and sees whether they should be allowed or not in the network.
So essentially, what happens is just like security rules can allow tenants to across each other to block
Yes.
traffic, allow traffic incoming, outgoing. What do you call those security rules? Like, what are they called? When you
Good.
configure them on the VPC, what do you call them? There's a name for that.
Firewall.
Access controllers, ACLs,
Yes,
ACLs. It's
I
called
did not
ACLs.
know about that.
Okay. So if you have to implement like an LLM, right?
Yes.
What kind of LLM would you use? An open source LLM would you use for this kind of multi-cloud tenant network? What would you do that?
What type of LLM will I use? I will use a large language model like, for example, Llama or Llama 3 to analyze the AI based resource management. Like I will train the model using AWS SageMaker and Azure machine learning, and then I will implement it into the multi-tenant
Why do
cloud
you
as
have to
well.
use AWS SageMaker for an open source? I mean, that
Oh
thing.
yes, I will use Hugging Face. Sorry, I can use Hugging Face.
Why are you using Hugging Face?
So open source AI are available on that, as per my knowledge.
Well, Llama 3 in itself is a big large learning model. I mean, okay, explain to me what is a vector database?
I do not know about this.
That's how the AI learns. You build up vector databases to update the knowledge spectrum of that thing so that it knows the context. Okay. All right. Finally, I was able to stump you in a question, right? Okay. Um, what is the fine line between what is the fine line between security and compliance and business requirements? Which comes first?
What do
Just
you mean by
define
fine
both.
line? What do you mean by fine line?
What defines the security and compliance requirements?
So there are industry standards that will require the compliance. Like as I mentioned, in health, we will use the HIPAA standards. In payment, we will use PCI DSS, and for any other data, we will use GDPR. So that are the industry standards which will convey us to how we should do the compliance of an organization
You're
or
telling
of an.
me that if I have to define controls as per the security requirement, as per the compliance requirements, then I go back and look at these standards to define controls.
No, no. So every organization has a different type of standards in security. It's not going to be same. So we can do auditing of our security, and then the auditor can tell us what type of measures we need to take.
No, it's not the auditor. The business requirements define, what kind of controls we need, what kind of security controls we will be required to be compliant with a specific compliance requirement. It is always the business requirements, right? The business dictates how we do all those things. Okay. All right, let me open back the presentation. GRC. Multi-tenant. So the governance, risk, and compliance in a multi-tenant environment, right? Okay. What is the, when it comes to GRC, governance, risk, and compliance, how does the organization tries to identify how far we can go in terms of implementing these controls?
So this can depend on the type of business or type of organization. Each organization can have different set of
The answer is in the acronym GRC. How does the organization identifies this is our threshold? If this happens, we have to implement the control so that we can stop this. If that happens again or something like that, then we have to figure out something else. What is that called?
the limit.
So it is called risk appetite. The risk
Oh, I did
appetite
not know about that.
defines, how you go through all of those things, right? Okay. Okay. Cloud security, encrypting tenant data. Who is ultimately responsible for the data residing on the cloud, the multi-tenant environment?
If it is specific data of the tenants, then the tenant may be responsible. But for all tenants, the multi-tenant cloud architecture or the cloud is responsible for securing the data.
So when you say securing the data, what does that mean? Like, so if, for
Like
example,
encrypting.
no. So for example, I have platform as a service in a
Yes.
multi-tenant environment, and I have infrastructure as a service. In a platform as a service, who's responsible for the data?
In the platform as a service, the cloud will be responsible.
And in infrastructure as a service, who's responsible?
In that, every tenant would be responsible for their own data.
Why is that?
Because infrastructure is inside the cloud, whereas cloud is itself a platform. So when platform is providing a service, so it will be responsible. But when infrastructure is providing a service, then it will be responsible.
So essentially, if I'm getting infrastructure from AWS, then I'm responsible. AWS is only responsible for providing us the infrastructure, but
Yes.
I'm responsible for securing it, getting it compliant, stuff like that, right? Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Excuse me. Okay. So explain how to develop a custom AI model for predictive analytics using AWS SageMaker. It appears that you know a lot about SageMaker.
No, I don't. I just know a little bit about it. So we will use AWS CloudWatch or Azure Monitor to collect the data from incoming traffic or outgoing, I mean all the data, and then we will clean it and normalize it. Normalize because if it is consistent, then it will be efficient. Then, and if it is normalized, then it is easy for data analysis on that data. Then we will create a model using AWS SageMaker and Azure Machine Learning. In the AI model, we will ensure that it implements the techniques like time series forecasting and anomaly detection. In time series forecasting, it will analyze the historical data and predict the future outcomes on any given day. And in the anomaly detection, it will oversee any unusual activity going on in the multi-tenant cloud architecture. Then there will be then we will deploy it on the production environment so that we can get real-time data as it is coming, and the AI will analyze it and predict the future data accordingly in real time. So because of that, the AI will continuously learn through new data, and which will make the multi-tenant cloud architecture or predictive analytics for multi-tenant cloud architecture very efficient in near future.
Okay, I mean, the answer could have been developing a model in SageMaker involves preparing data, selecting an appropriate algorithm, training the model, fine-tuning. Okay, I will take that answer. So how can the AWS encryption SDK, software development kit, enhance security for application level encryption? How does it do that?
So first, data is encrypted already, and the Amazon SDK applies another layer of security upon it, so that it is more difficult for a hacker or intruder to get access to that data. So it applies security
It
another
applies what? What is in the SDK? What does SDK consist of?
application level security. So it applies
No, 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 no. SDK implies simplifies encryption and
software
application
development
by
kit.
providing what? By providing what? What's in the SDK? Most important. It's a very simple question. Very simple.
It is a software development kit.
It's libraries. It's
Yes,
libraries.
libraries. I forgot.
Keep it simple, right? Try to keep it simple. So that is what allows the encryption within application securing sensitive information before it is transmitted. Okay. Um, I'm going to jump into something very, very separate, right? So there are two multi-cloud environments, right? And you have to create a mechanism where you can move one VM from here, from AWS to Azure. So that like there's a real-time disaster recovery in there, right? And if anything happens to Azure, AWS, all the VMs jump towards, you know, the the Azure architecture, right? Or vice versa. How would you achieve that kind of capability in the networks?
We can use Kubernetes in this, in which we can use containers and pods, which is a group of containers, because in containers it is easy to it is easy to pack the software as per their dependencies, and it reduces the storage and also reduces the time to send it to another environment. And we will use auto scaling and load balancers as per the tenant are increased, so it can convert and go into another cloud platform instead of being in that one.
So what do you call that? So you were able to answer the question, but technically, what is it called? And at a
What
network level, what do you call that? That feature where the traffic is going from one place to the other place.
orchestration?
Well, yeah, I mean, orchestration is there, but how do you, if I tell you the answer, then that will be the answer. How do you determine that the load is going down from here, then we should divert the traffic over here? There's an upper
Uh,
layer.
uh, the uh, the AI or the auto scaling group will recognize whether to balance the load or not. When
Yes,
it
balance. So it's the global load balancer, which determines like the traffic needs to go here, go there, right? So that's what you do. Okay. How are you feeling?
feeling good.
So how would you implement zero downtime migration strategy for moving tenants between cloud providers?
Zero downtime, we will already have the resources ready. Like in Kubernetes, we will have already containers that are ready. That if we have to balance the load, that automatically balances it using AI. AI will analyze that whether the resources are required to whom, and the load will turn towards the tenants that requires the load.
Essentially implementing a stage migration, data synchronization, automated data testing, QA, rollback procedures, capabilities, tenant specific migration schedules. There's a lot of things that goes in, right?
Yes.
How do you define artificial intelligence operations as part of the what you're doing in this whole exercise?
In this presentation,
Yes.
artificial intelligence operations means it is a collection of AI, DevOps, SysOps, cybersecurity, and cloud security, and this is what makes AI ops. So from starting, I used all of these as in collectively. Like first, I used DevOps for automating the multi-tenant cloud architecture. Then I used for SysOps and AI for resource management. Then I use cybersecurity for securing the tenants' data. Then I use cloud security for securing the whole cloud and the tenants' data as well.
Amazing. So that concludes our presentation. I had to would you like to know your score?
Yes.
Amazing. You scored out of 50, 43.5, which is comes to 87%. It's like altogether, yeah, in the presentation and in the Q&A. I'm really happy that you went through all of those things. Now imagine if you do Al Razak program, right?
Yes.
People who have been able to secure jobs prior to completing their diploma is because they spend time doing the Al Razak labs, right? So if you have the time, then you should invest that time to get Al Razak done. I believe that you can become a very formidable engineer down the line by investing your time strategically in getting the Al Razak labs done, right? Are you registered in the Global Internship Program?
No, that was introduced recently, so I did not.
Okay. So you're already in the Al Razak program, so you should start doing all the initial labs and everything, right? This is my strong recommendation for you. Congrats in terms of passing, uh, you know. Uh, Now all we have to do now is we are going to uh, we are utilizing artificial intelligence, right, to audit students' data submitted to us by the students when they go through all of those things. So we will be reviewing that thing. That is the only thing that is going to uh, that has to go through. Basically, there's a process for that, right? Do you have any questions for me?
I wanted to ask that it is necessary to become that everyone has to become an engineer in this IT, or like I love management side, or like the talking side of the. I understand concepts very well, but I do not really love to really work upon it. I love the concepts and talking and managing, but I don't really love to work upon it. So, what can you advise me?
The great leader is the person who goes back into the trenches and work with the workers, right? So like Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam during the Battle of the Trench, Ghazwa Khandak, right? He was there working with all the Sahabas, all the companions, digging himself, not saying, okay, I like to talk, I'm just going to sit here, you guys all do all the digging. No, he was there using a shovel and a pickaxe,
Yeah.
removing all the things. In fact, when the Sahabas saw a big boulder, which they were not able to remove,
Then he broke it.
then he broke it, right? They were not, I mean, there was Umar bin al-Khattab, there was Hazrat Ali radiallahu anhu, there was all the strong Khalid bin, all of these stronger ones were there, right? I believe that Khalid bin Walid accepted Islam after a
In Treaty of Hudaybiyah. Treaty of
yes,
Hudaybiyah.
right? So so in Ghazwa Khandaq, I think he was not there, right? So the point is like all of these great Sahabas, the great companions didn't have the strength. So you need to learn how to use the pickaxe and the shovel yourself. Then you can become an ultimate leader, right? A leader is not the person who just directs. A leader is the person who's always there with his fellow men working on the front line, right? In the Islamic history, all the army generals had a short lifespan because they used to fight, right, on the front lines. Nowadays, our army generals are totally unfit because all they like is sit in an air-conditioned room without doing anything. On the contrary, the Russians, they send their generals on the front lines, right? The Americans don't do that. The Pakistanis don't do that. Even the British don't do that, right? So you can understand that to be a great leader, you have to be where the people, whether your own team respects you, you need to learn all of these things. You need to be good at coding. You need to be good at bash scripting,
Scripting.
scripting, not coding, scripting, right? You need to be better in terms of doing all of those things. Yes. Then you can become, a manager, right? Then you can become a director. Then you can become a C-level officer. If I have to share my wisdom with you, this is my wisdom. I have been a C-level officer in the States, but I never became a C-level officer immediately because I was always there with my team. Even if my teams is tired and they are taking rest, I was still there, continuously working, right? Not going home. And there has been time where I was at the office for 2, 3 days, making sure like everything is going smooth, right? So you can imagine this is the most important thing. You have to go in. That's why I'm telling you, you have to go in and get Al Razak work done. You have to become an engineer, right? You can go into cybersecurity, into GRC, into AI, platform development, stuff like that. But you have to go in and get the work done yourself. Otherwise, that's why when my son was born, the first gift I gave him was a shovel. I said, here you go. So he started shoveling. He loves digging. You know, as a Pashtun, we are we are called basically the labor force, right? We are the diggers, we are the masons, right? So we go in and we dig, right? So you have to do all of these things. I'm not asking you to go and start digging. No, I'm telling you to go and start practicing Dockers, Kubernetes, all of these things, right? You can pass the exams. You can do all of those things quite easily if you put some extra effort and time in there, right? I'm really happy for you. I think you have done your O levels in A level and you've done this. You should apply for a master's program in UK or in US. If you go to US, you have to work really hard. If you go to UK, you have to work really hard. And after completing 1 year of degree, you will be able to secure in US 3 years, up to 3 years of work permit, in UK up to 2 years of work permit, right? And you can start applying for jobs and doing all of those things and you can settle down. It's a tremendous opportunity for you to go into these countries, right? I wish you the best. I'm really happy. The academic operations team will let you know the next steps. It will take them 4 to 6 weeks to compile all the data and everything. But if you want to apply for a university immediately for February session or something like that, you still have time. Excuse me. You still have time. You can do that. But you have to ask us, to provide you some letters and mark sheet and, all of those things. So they can provide you that in a week time or something like that. And then you can, based on that, you can start applying, right? Your diploma, once your evidence is submitted to EduQual, your diploma will be issued, I would say, in 4 to 6 weeks' time, right? After the submission. They can do it earlier on as well. They can do it in 2 weeks, minimum 2 weeks, maximum 6. It's up to them. We cannot influence that process, right? I'm really happy for you, Muhammad. If you don't have any questions, can end the session. If you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer.
No, I have not.
Okay, thank you for your time. And I wish
Jazakallah.
you the very best in your future, in dunya and akhirah both. Okay, Jazakallah khair. Assalamu
Jazakallah.
alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Alaikum assalam.